So last week, not only did you learn about creating your own luck, it sounds like at least one of you did. Will, are you in here today? Oh, there he is. Congratulations on that. What are you going to do with that grand? Marketing. Okay, well, I think our guest today might be able to help you a little bit with that, some tips. Today, we are going to be learning a little bit about risk management, perseverance, and failure from a pair of co-founders, a couple of co-founders. You might say lifelong co-founders. So ahead of Valentine's Day, ahead of love being in the air as it is, leading into this special day, these two are the ultimate testament to it and the co-founder relationship that they have. They're going to share some secrets with us about their entrepreneurial success, their lessons from failure, their tips on perseverance through life, business, and marriage. She is the founder and CEO of Metric Marketing, recognized by Inc. Incorporated as one of the fastest growing companies in the Midwest. He is the founder and CEO of Akadeum Life Sciences, and he previously served as an EHour at a leading VC firm in Detroit. Together, they have trained over 5,000 professionals on digital marketing. They've raised over $25 million for their ventures. They've taught hundreds of students in CFE's practicum course, as he was a former instructor. And they've raised two sons who hopefully are on the cusp of also joining the University of Michigan family. Please, please, please give me a warm Valentine's Day weekend welcome to Hannah and Brandon McNaughton.
Well, good morning. Can you hear me? Or do I need to adjust my microphone here? Can we get some thumbs up there? All right. Well, thanks for the introduction. We're very happy to be here. We always like to start with gratefulness. Like you heard some of our backgrounds there a bit ago, and we're really grateful and feel privileged to have done what we've done and to do what we do. I feel very grateful, too, to have been part of the Center for Entrepreneurship family. Taught here for over 10 years and busy now working on Akadeum. And we're going to share some really fun content with you guys here in a second. But I'm looking in the audience because I wanted to see if Rachel is here yet. Is Rachel here yet? Is there a
Nothing
Rachel?
like getting called out in the middle of everyone.
Rachel, could you stand up for me real quick? I didn't warn her about this. Okay, this is Rachel. So this is my niece from California. So she's graduating high school this year, and she's here right now because she actually is trying out tomorrow for the final tryouts for the dance team. So are there any dance students here or any dance team members by chance? All right, if you know anyone, make sure you put in a good word for Rachel, because we want her to move to Michigan. I mean, do you agree? I hope so.
Yeah.
So anyways, wish her well, and yeah, if you know someone, give her the inside scoop on how to get on the dance team. So anyways, also I have my brother and sister-in-law as well, and our two sons, like you mentioned, and so we're just very happy to be here. And it's kind of special that it's, I guess, Valentine's Day.
Yeah,
event.
I know. Yeah, I don't know that there's ever been like a couple that's gotten to do this. That's kind of fun.
I don't know. We should ask them. I don't know.
I don't know. You guys get us, regardless of whether you wanted two people or not. You get both of us. So.
All right. Well, maybe we should get started. You think?
We're excited to be here. Yeah, we, discussed already. The topic we're going to be talking about today is, perseverance, and it takes a lot of perseverance to build a company. And we're just so excited to be able to talk about it with you guys today.
Yeah, so we have what we like to call our 7 rules of passion, perseverance, and positive mindset, really. And all those things are really important, and we'll touch on those as we go through the slides here. I think you heard about this. I don't know, just maybe so you know a little bit more. We're both Ann Arbor-based. We have very different types of companies. Maybe I'll talk about mine just for a second.
Sure.
And the company I'm at, and then you can talk about yours.
Yeah.
Akadeum Life Sciences is a tech company. It's a biotech company. And it's one of these really neat opportunities where, to innovate the technology we have, it required physics and biochemistry and immunology and all these disciplines in order to create the technology and product we have now. So we have 13 products on the market. And we're focusing now on essentially developing new tools for things like cell therapy, next generation diagnostics, and it's really a blast to work at. And I'm on the side more being venture capital backed, so that's the life I live, and I've done angel investment, crowd funding, any of those types of things that you're interested in. We're happy to take questions. at the end. And that's a little bit different than Hannah's company.
Yeah, definitely different than me. So my side is the other side. I do not have any venture capital money. I have a bootstrapped company. So I started mine from the ground up with funding from myself and just trying to keep it moving and gradually growing, with hard work and making sales. So I never thought I was a salesperson at all. Thought there's absolutely no way I can sell until I started this company, and you realize it's all about relationships. And it's a really important part of being able to grow a business. We have about 25 team members, and we focus on digital marketing. So for law clients, I worked in legal space for quite a while, as well as biotech, life science clients, and SaaS companies.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We have a lot of fun conversations. It's you saw the title "Founders for Life." We've actually never founded a company together, but it's almost like we're each other's best advisors. So we don't get into details at the dinner table or things like that, but we do kind of get advice from each other. But we also see our life really as a bigger thing than the company we're working on or the thing we're doing right now. And that's what we're going to share today. Is that what we do is really part of a larger life philosophy, a larger life mindset, and our companies are an important part of that. And like one mentor we have and we've had for a long time, he talks about that. There's this kind of big discussion around always have your work-life balance, and it's important to live a balanced life, but you only get one life, so live it well. And how do you do that? And how do you do that in a healthy way that allows you to maintain good relationships with family, friends, but also to be successful and active in what you do? So we'll take you through that. I don't know if anything else on this slide.
Through, other things too. I don't know. We have lots of stories, probably starting here.
Oh yeah, this story. I don't know, should you tell this story? I don't know, they probably get a different version of it, depending on who's telling this story.
Probably a little bit different, I don't know. We started out like you guys. We sat in your shoes, but we met in college.
Yeah, University of Toledo. Not at Michigan, unfortunately, but University of Toledo.
Yeah.
And that was around, 2001, 2002?
Yeah, 2001, we met in college. And it was just, you have the ability to build something that you dream of. You do. It's just all about being intentional.
And we feel like we're old enough now where you probably look at us and you're like, man, that's really far in the future. It's like, that's not even like down the road. So
from this side, it feels like that really wasn't long ago, but how did we get here?
So we had to put some pictures where we looked more your age. And, we were in your seats, and, one of the messages is your life is going to happen, and why not be intentional about it? And that really gets us, I think, into the beginning of our, does it? Oh, yeah, sorry about this photo. I don't know, who put this photo in anyway?
Are we ever going to be invited back? Is this like the worst thing that anyone's,
Yeah.
We can probably go speak at Ohio State.
Yeah, this is, probably nobody here connects with this photo, just our friends.
Hey, we made sure that it was still appropriate enough. We blurred it all out, so, yeah.
To the point, though, it's interesting because I'm sure people get up here and they talk specifically about their company, right? Like, I started it and this is what was in my mind, and here's all the little, the things I had to overcome to do it, and that's important. But when we were asked today to talk about perseverance and endurance and overcoming failure, and even how do you think about failure, I think you have to start at the beginning, which is why even do anything? Hannah and I could be on the beach right now in Belize. So why? I don't know.
I've run out of money pretty quickly, but yeah, and probably end up more like this after a while.
Yeah, but there is a reason why we're here, and we seek out purpose and meaning, which we'll talk about in a bit. But think about why you're here too, and we talk about this. Like, you all could be doing anything. You're not sitting where you are unless you're smart and motivated. So a lot of you probably already kind of passed this, or maybe you just jumped it without thinking about it. But there is this important philosophical question of why do anything at all? I don't know if we have any nihilists in the room, but if we do, I won't call you out. But if we do, that's kind of one of the roots of that philosophy. It's like, well, does anything matter? Why do anything? And we've had a lot of conversations about this, and I think being in companies and doing entrepreneurship and trying to build something that hasn't existed before, you sometimes have to go deep and dig deep, and having that foundation of why are you even doing it? Why are you taking the classes you are? Why are you trying to build the life that you're trying to build? And it all starts there. And so how we think about it really is, I like to almost think about it as if you're sitting on a couch, right? At some point, all of us like to just go home and, I'm going to sit down, I'm tired. If you imagine, you could just do anything you want. If you could just sit in one spot, and have people bring you food, you could watch TV and never get up, how long do you think that'll be, I don't know, relaxing for? How long do you think that'll be interesting for? At some point, you get bored. At some point, you start going, is there more than this? Is there something else that I should do and something else I want to do? And so I think that's really the beginning of, okay, you have to ask yourself, why are you doing what you're doing? And if you decide, and look, for the nihilists out there who want, this guy here, our friend, maybe that's the life he wants to live. And who are we to judge? And I think that's the importance of individual decision. If you want to live that life, that's great. But if you don't, decide to do something else. And once you make that decision to do something, it's good, I think, to have that purpose and vision and meaning so that when you move forward with your work, you move forward with the life you're building, you have that foundation to propel you forward. And I think, Hannah, I think it's a good segue to share.
Yeah.
Your experience. Oh, I should have said this first. I said it without advancing. I just love this quote from the first person to ever be on the top of Everest. He was asked, well, why did you climb Everest? He said, because it's there. So for him, the fact that there was something in the world that had never been scaled before was enough motivation to risk his life, to do something that has never been done and accomplish it. Now, for me, that probably wouldn't be enough. I think it'd be interesting to go to Everest, but I don't know. It's like, bottom of the ocean or something. 7 miles down. I think I'll skip that. I'll stick with other things. But you got to make that decision. And then that gets you, once you make that decision, to the importance of vision.
Yeah. So when I started Metric, I came from a company where it wasn't the best work environment. And I knew that I wanted something different, but I was afraid that I would somehow build a company that kind of became that without realizing that that's what it was becoming. So one of the processes I went through when starting the company is a process of visioning. And visioning is something that you'll hear Ari from Zingerman's talk about visioning a lot. There's a lot of really great resources that he has out there about this. But it's basically thinking about a day, some point in the future. Not too far, not too close, but something that feels realistic. So say like 5 years in the future, and describe that day in detail. What are you doing? Where are you living? What kind of life do you have? Are you in a relationship? Are you working a certain type of job? What kind of job are you doing? Where are you living? Those sorts of things. And doing that really helped me at so many points along building this business, because you get to points along the way where you go, why am I doing this? I kind of forgot why I got into this in the first place. And putting a vision down for what you want for your future helps you to stay on a really good path, because it's really important to know what you want to do, but it's also really important to know what you don't want to do. And a lot of times there will be these shiny objects, right? I'm sure there have been so many shiny objects that have come up in your company.
I'm like the king of shiny objects, by the way. For those of you who know me, know that well. So
yeah.
There are a lot of shiny objects.
He thinks of new inventions, multiple per day.
It feels like a curse, honestly. But
yes. I like being married to him because I tell him it keeps me very entertained. Because it's like I'm constantly learning new things. But yeah, you can get distracted by these things along the way as you're going through life. And it doesn't have to be in work, it's just in your life, in your personal relationships. There are going to be things along the way, if you're just living life and not being intentional about what you're doing, that come along and that get your attention. And you go, oh, that looks interesting. Do I want to go that way? And if you have a vision for your life, you know whether those decisions or the things that you're trying to decide about, whether they actually fit into what you truly in your soul want. And I think it can just be a really powerful thing to help you propel forward, because we've written visions for our lives. We wrote one for, what this is about. Yeah, we wrote one for our family.
Yeah, it's actually interesting because I think it was probably even 6 or 7 years ago. I mean, honestly, it feels funny when you write it, because I think at the time we lived in Ann Arbor. We were in the city, and we're like, what we really want to be is, we want to be out in the country, and we want to have a garden, and we want to have chickens to where, we have enough where we could, get eggs from the chicken and maybe get potatoes and onions and, cook a farm-type breakfast and have friends over and have family over. And we want to be where we hear no car, and we see no house, and it's peaceful, and there's water and oak trees. And it's interesting because we worked at it, and my mom, we went back to her, and she came and visited, and she goes, "Oh my gosh, it's exactly what you wrote down." And we kind of knew that, but it was just interesting hearing that from somebody else. And I don't think we would have done it if we weren't that intentional.
No, there was a point when we were sitting at, it was 8th grade graduation for our oldest son. And
the one on the left.
Yes.
By the way, we don't have helmets on. We should have had a disclaimer here. We do not advise riding motorcycles.
Yes. One on the left. He's a senior. He's a pilot working on his pilot's license right now, which has been really fun. To see him follow his vision and his passions for his life, it's been really fun. But yeah, he was graduating, 8th grade graduation, and the vision was something we had written before. But I just looked at Brandon and I was like, we had this written down for our life, but that's now. When is that ever going to happen? We wanted to have this for our kids, and they're already, going into high school. So, yeah.
And I think also in that category, what will happen to you throughout your career, and this I've talked to a lot of mentors about this too, is if you don't choose for yourself, somebody will choose for you. Mm-hmm. So imagine failing at something. That's one of the topics today. Imagine failing at something that you didn't choose for yourself. I think there's almost nothing more terrifying. Failure sucks in its own right, and to fail at something that you don't care about, that's double bad to me. So that's why we try to live a life where we're choosing what we do, so then when we fail, it's actually a good thing, which we'll talk about in a minute. But in that category, there's job offers that come up, there's opportunities, and they can be seductive, right? It's oh wow, Hannah got offered a position to run an entire company before she started her company, and she knew at that time, though, that's not what she wanted. Mm-hmm. So, she knew very quickly that's not the pathway she wanted to go. And I remember you had a conversation with me that you're like, hey, I'm thinking about quitting my job, and I'm going to start a company. Right. And she's like, what do you think? And we had 2 little ones, and money was pretty tight, and I said, that's okay. We'll figure it out. And I thought she was talking 3-6 months in the future. The next day, I'm sitting at work, and I get a text, and it says, Brandon, I just let my boss know that I'm quitting. I thought, oh, here we go, I guess. But that's this, I know we're spending a lot of time on vision, but it's one of those things and we could direct you to resources, but if you just Google Zingerman's visioning, it's a really good framework. And it's one of those things that if you do it, it's when we did it, we were probably 30. And it's one of those things I'm I wish I would have done this when I was 20. I wish I would have done this.
Yeah, I've written,
sooner.
we did it as, we did personal visions, and I've done a couple for my company, and those have been 5-year visions, and we're almost to our 3rd one. So it's been really interesting, so cool to see the visions that we wrote out for the company, what has actually come to be true. And I think our first one was 80 to 90% of the things that we wrote down ended up being true. And of course, there are going to be some things that aren't, you're some of the things I know that we had in there were we're going to have 3 different locations, and these, we don't have physical locations in these places yet, but we have people who are working there.
You have more than 3 locations, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, we have people all over, but we don't have physical locations places. But even the one though that we're coming up on right now, it's we're 60% of the way there, and it's so cool even for my team because they can see what they're working toward as well, which is really helpful. So.
And that's the motivation though for the next point here is there's this idea of there's different ways to say it, but it's you don't get beautiful flowers by cultivating weeds, or I like to say personally because I love gardening. You don't get tomatoes by planting and cultivating bell peppers. It sounds obvious, I know, but a lot of us do that in our lives. And this goes back to the vision. So when you've made that intentional statement, that's kind of the beginning, that's the seed. But that's not where it ends. That's only where it begins. So then you have 3 years, 5 years, whatever it is, where all these things are going to pop up. And what do you do with that? Do you, take the chance to work on something that maybe just is attractive in the moment, but isn't in line with your vision? Because if you do, now you're going down a different pathway that you actually don't genuinely want, at least if you wrote your vision in an honest way, kind of in line with your inner voice. So that's this happens to us all. And I'm sure, everybody has choices to make, right? What school do I go to? What classes am I going to take? And that's, again, where, we would just encourage everybody to do it as soon as possible, to think about, what do I want for my future? And that's a really important thing. And the follow-up is make sure you find people who are close to you, who are supportive, who you can share that vision with, and they can actually help, keep you focused on cultivating those flowers and not the weeds. And I don't know, we have lots of stories here we could kind of tell, but I think the job opportunities, Hannah talks about all the ideas I have. I look at those as a lot of weeds. It sounds funny, right? Because some people feel like it's so important to have all these ideas. But it's like if I tried to chase all those, I would get nothing done. I would get nothing done. There would be no advancement in any one area. So I have to personally spend a lot of time thinking about, well, is this idea, is this thing actually in line with my vision and in line with what I feel like my purpose and meaning is? See, I promise we go faster on some of these. Don't worry, we don't have to these slides.
How many of you guys have seen this? Know where it's from?
Who's seen Ted Lasso?
I finally just saw this recently.
I feel like asking the counter question of who hates Ted Lasso. Does anyone hate Ted Lasso?
Yeah.
Does anyone think it's a
That's
bad
interesting.
show? Okay, if you haven't seen it, it's great. Sorry, go ahead, Hannah.
Oh, he's just such a likable character. Yeah.
There's somebody who doesn't like him, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely, I'm sure. But yeah. Believing that you can actually do something is often the hardest part. I think as we grow up, we start to get all these voices. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't act like this. You shouldn't. Girls don't do this. Guys don't do that. Blah, whatever it is. And getting voices out of your head is such a hard thing to do, but it's so important in being able to build a vision and also believing in the fact that you can do it. Like, you can absolutely realize that.
Yeah, and from talking to Hannah, I know when she wrote her vision, she put things in there like she wanted to contribute to a book. She wanted to be a paid speaker. She wanted, she listed all these things, and I know at the time, she was actually really self-conscious about it. Because it's like, if you have maybe any humility, it feels really weird to make these big statements about what you hope for your future. And all of us have our reasons with that. And that's, it doesn't happen unless you believe. Like, there's no championship team, sports team, that's ever won a championship without first believing that they could actually win it. Like, that actually the beginning of getting where you want to go is that belief that it's even possible. And look at the most successful entrepreneurs. They have the craziest ideas, and somehow they go do it. And everyone's like, how did they do that? Well, they're a little bit crazy, right?
Yeah.
They actually have belief. We all think people who have blind faith are crazy. And people who have blind faith are crazy, but they're the ones who actually make it happen, right? Like the sports teams who believe, I hate to say this, I'm a Lions fan, but we got to believe we can win the Super Bowl. Otherwise, it's never going to happen.
Oh,
and I believe the Lions are going to win
believes.
the Super Bowl at some point.
Yeah,
so,
you're not a fair weather fan. You've stuck with them.
I guess not.
Yeah.
But this is a really important thing, and because once you believe, we can go to the next slide. Because once you believe, we've actually talked a lot about this, because this is true of relationships, a job, your company, whatever it is. Because once you believe and once you have vision in what you're doing, you're committed now. Like, you're going down that pathway. So why do it half in or half out? I feel like it's so many people, and it's very tempting, because I know we've both fallen into that sometimes, want to live half in and half out. But if you actually believe, like I believe I'm the best wife in the world. Well, if I believe that, then guess what? I'm all in. I believe I have the best team in the world at Akadeum. Well, I believe that I'm all in. I believe we can change the future. So I'm all in. But once you actually have that belief, why not be all in? And I think a lot of times, and this gets a little bit to a positive mindset, but I think there's a little bit of this okay, well, why should you be all in? Well, if you ask me that, I'd say, it's your choice to stay or go. I hope nobody is here because they were forced to be here. You're here because you have a choice. You're in a job probably because it's a choice. You're in a relationship because it's a choice. If you start a company, it's a choice. So if it's up to you to leave or go, how is it fair to be anything other than all in or all out? And that actually is the root of perseverance. I've actually had one investor at Akadeum. He told me, he said, Brandon, this was about a year ago. He goes, you're the most perseverant CEO in my portfolio. He's like, how do you do it? How do I tell my other CEOs how to persevere like you? And I said, I don't think it's anything other than once you decide to do it, don't take it on unless you're going to see it through to the end. It's a little bit of the captain mentality of we're going to go all the way through to the end. And the only way that will stop is if something forces us to stop, which I think is our segue, because we like Dory.
Yep. Yes. Be like Dory. Be unstoppable. Just keep swimming. Yeah, I think this is really where the vision helped me so much along the way, because you come to points where you're like, I don't know why I'm doing this. Like, I just feel done. I don't know why I started this in the first place. And then you look back at that and you're like, oh yeah, this is what I wanted to work toward. And I think it can give you, some reassurance that you're on the right path and help remind you, because sometimes it's just you against the world in that, and you don't have anyone else in your ear to talk to except for, the things that you've written to yourself kind of. So, but yeah, it's really, really important to just, it's to be all in. Yeah.
It's I think it's one of the hardest things, and there's I don't know, anybody a fan of Dean Kamen? Does anyone know who Dean Kamen is? Just curious? Okay, good. Mm. I like you. Good job. Well, he's the inventor of the Segways, how most people know about him. But he also, he invented portable dialysis. I mean, I think he's what I consider more a modern day Edison. I know Tesla kind of gets that comparison, but I think Dean Kamen more is. And I actually had a chance to meet him, and I think he talks about this, which is, you'll start working on something. And the story actually is I got to meet him here, and I asked him, I said, well, you're an inventor. Like, what do you do once you have a prototype? Because I have like a million prototypes of things. So I'm like, what do you do next? Like, you have a prototype. It's so cool. You have an idea. You work on it. I'm sure a lot of you have thought about this. And so I asked him, I'm like, I got the modern day Edison. I'm going to ask him. And so I said, what do I do? What do I do next? And he looked at me and said, I don't know. And so so I kind of took a step back, and I said, oh, this is Dean Kamen in front of me. Like, how does he not know? So I tried to rephrase my question. I thought, well, maybe I didn't communicate right. And I said, well, I have these, I get it to a certain point, and it's not like just an idea, a kind of prototype, I make something, and I just don't know what to do next to advance it. And so I'm looking for some advice from you. Like, what do I do next? And so he looked at me and paused and said, I don't know. Which really threw me off, and I think he saw that I was struggling. And he said, the reason I don't know is because when you look back after you have arrived at a successful product or an invention or whatever it is, and you look back and you realize all these things had to happen that you could have never predicted. And I actually found a quote from him later where he talks about, when you look at things that happen in history, historians come along and describe it like the straight line. Like if you look at Instagram, when they started, it was like, oh, they had a team of 5, they raised some money, like a little bit like a year later, they sold it for $1 billion to Facebook. Hey, anybody can do it. Mm-hmm. But it's never that easy. It's never that straight. It's always a curvy path. It's always ups and downs. And unless you have that reason, back like Hannah said with the vision, to keep going, then you just stop. And that's the importance of this. And, I think that gets us to our 7th rule, which is, let's not keep going. I want to say, that's what we should have done. We should have put so many slides that we just kept going. And so in the spirit of
this is the one that you very very much
this is an
live.
Interesting thing. So this may actually, I don't know if it would be controversial exactly, but maybe some of you disagree with this. Because you hear sayings like, failure is unacceptable, right? Like, we'll accept anything but failure. Or we think, you always have to succeed. But how we think about it, and I actually think there's a lot of evidence behind this, success and failure are actually essentially to us the same thing, part of the same thing, but different sides of the coin. So think about how we live our lives, right? We almost avoid risk, we avoid failure, but you don't actually ever, I don't know, maybe we can talk about this if we have time in the discussion after. I don't think you ever have success without some amount of failure along the way. I think it may be actually impossible. So maybe we can, if somebody has an example, I'd love to hear it, where there's only a success outcome. And so when you realize that, I think it's a really important thing too, because we take it, we're so hard on ourselves where it's we say fail a class, right? Or something doesn't go the way we want. We put it on ourselves and we think we are that failure, right? We are our grades. I almost feel I remember when I was a student, I felt like that was such a big part of who I was. And that mindset is really hard to overcome. But you're not your grades. You're not your failures. You're not even your successes. You're not your material possessions. That inside you is not those things. You are something different. You're incredibly unique. And I would argue that you, and this is actually scientifically provable, in my opinion, and my background's physics, in the history of the universe, there's never been any single person or entity like you. So what you do and what happens is not what defines you. You have a set of interests, you have a set of skills that nobody else in the world has. So why get distracted by the ups and downs? You know, you keep going, and it's bigger than what's happening in the moment. And you know, that gets us to our last slide, and maybe I jumped a little bit fast, but I think we're probably at time
good.
now. I don't think I've seen anybody sleeping yet, so but you never know, right? It's college, and at least it's not. You know, isn't Thursday night a party night? Is it? Do I remember right? So we should move this to Thursday. 'Cause, like, you know, I guess it's later in the day. So thanks for hanging out with us.
When you know people are super serious.
But really, the message we want to leave you with is really that. Like I mean, both of us talk a lot about this. Like we believe that the future does not just happen. I mean, that's almost the perception, right? Like things are just happening to us. You know, the future's just happening. But I would encourage you to think about, and even challenge you to think about, like, is there a future that could exist that you believe in? And like at Akadeum, we believe in a future where cell therapy is more accessible. We believe in a future where diagnostics can be done anywhere. And we got a team built where we said, hey, we're a group of people who have this shared belief. So let's intentionally go do it. But that is incredibly hard. You got to have a lot of perseverance. And we think these 7 rules help with that. And you know, now not everybody in here wants to do diagnostics. Some people want to do marketing. Maybe you want to be, I don't know, a professional athlete, I don't know, musician, pilot, right? That's your decision because you are unique. So then it's up to you to decide what future you want to realize going back to the vision.
Yeah.
So we're looking forward to questions, and hopefully, Eric, we left enough time, but thanks for having us.
Yeah.
How do you know which ones to go all in on? How do you stick with one and say, you know what? That's the one I'm going to go all in on. For students who are otherwise deciding what they want to do and have all those options, how can they hone in?
My honest answer to that is, I don't know. Sorry, I had to quote Dean Kamen there for a second. But it's really a personal thing, right? And, you know, because some people will get into because there are actually engineering analysis of how do you maximize probability of what decisions, and, you know, you build all these Excel charts and stuff. But I actually think it's much more personal. So it's one of those things that, you know, because an idea can be exciting in the moment, but when you, I'll give a little story, maybe an example. I thought of making liquid nitrogen ice cream. This was probably 15 years ago. So I used to go to elementary schools and stuff to do physics demos, and we'd make liquid nitrogen ice creams. And I thought, oh, that'd be a really cool business. You could it'd be the world's freshest ice cream. You know, people would come in, you just make a liquid slurry, put in whatever you want, and then you pour in liquid nitrogen. In 30 seconds, you have fresh ice cream. You know, it'd be really cool to watch, and you could franchise it. And then I don't remember if it was Jesse, who's my brother here, or another one. I got 3 older brothers, but one of them called me and said, "Oh, do you watch Shark Tank?" And I don't watch Shark Tank for some reason. But I said, "No, I didn't see it. What happened?" And they said, "Oh, your idea was on Shark Tank." They started describing it, liquid nitrogen, franchise, all that kind of stuff. And I used to actually get a lot of fear of missing out from that. And at the time, though, I was I was actually okay with it. And the reason is sure, it was a great idea. Somebody went and did it. Somebody made money off it. Went on Shark Tank and got an investment. But you know what? I don't like ice cream. I know, don't hate me for that. There's probably some people. Hannah loves ice cream. I just don't like ice cream. And so then, I don't hate it, but my point is, why go through all the hardship for ice cream?
Yeah.
Maybe if it was coffee.
Yeah.
Maybe. But I think that, I don't know, hopefully that example helps, because if you really are, I was enticed by the excitement of the idea, but but I just don't like ice cream. So you really have to be honest with yourself is the answer.
What was it in 2013 that spurred this new chapter?
It was an unhealthy work environment mixed with seeing and being able to engage in a healthy work environment. So Brandon actually was working at, he was working out of this, was it the startup garage before it was the startup garage?
At Menlo Innovations.
At Menlo Innovations. And so he had just started Akadeum, and I would go down and visit him. And if you guys aren't familiar with Menlo, they're a software development company here in Ann Arbor, and just a phenomenal company. And I remember I would walk through the doors there and go, this feels different. And for me, that's what it was, is wanting to create a culture like that for people, because you have to work. Well, I guess you don't have to. You don't have to, right? We talked about our guy on slide number 1. But like, you typically probably are going to be doing something with your life. So you should be able to do it in an environment that's fun and work with people that are great, that you enjoy. And we've really been able to create that. So that's really what it is for me.
Just real quick, I would describe that as like, she decided she wanted to create her own work culture, right? Like, so that's an interesting thing. It goes back to creating the future you believe in. And you know, for Hannah, that was creating a workplace that was great for her, but also great for her team members, that's an interesting thing for us, is how, like, that's probably been the most rewarding thing of starting company and running companies, is the people and the type of environment and the type of setting. And look, nowhere's perfect, right? Everywhere has its flaws, but we both appreciate places that try to do it different, and that's what, you know, we've both done.
Okay, that's how. So going back to creating an environment, creating a work you want to be part of, you both have hired. A very intentional, conscious set of values that you've brought into your company. Talking to students who are on the networking world, what should they be looking out for in an interview to know, hey, this is a culture that maybe embraces making mistakes and failure and lessons from them, understands perseverance, all the topics that we've kind of talked about today?
I love digging into, learning about, how do other people succeed. You can always learn from other people. I think nowadays that's something I think we're seeing more and more, is sometimes people think that they kind of know everything and they can't learn from other people. And we can all learn from everyone, no matter who they are. But Patrick Lencioni, phenomenal author, writes these business books that are, they're fables, so they're stories, so you learn something like real from it, but it's not boring, it's more fun to read. And I read one called The Ideal Team Player, and he talks about 3 things that are very, very important in building a team. And if any person is missing one, then they're never going to be like a really high-performing employee. And the 3 things are humble, hungry, and smart. So it's humble, humility. You have to have humility. You have to be able to say, I messed up, I was wrong, I'm sorry, those sorts of things. You have to be able to take responsibility for your actions. And being a good team player is you have to be able to, it's kindergarten skills, really. And then the hungry really refers to you have a passion to do this. This isn't just a job to you. Who's that person that is going above and beyond, reaching out, doing follow-ups, showing that they're actually really wanting this position. And then the smart is like, can you read a room? Can you understand, how you should be in certain situations in a business? It's important to understand how to interact with coworkers or with clients and things like that. So those are 3 really important things that we look for, but really it's the humility is, a really big piece.
And look for it the other way. So when you're interviewing, ask team members what it's like, ask what their teammates are like, and ask, like one of my favorite questions when I'm interviewing somebody is when someone says, what's the culture like here? And I'm like, oh, let me tell you what it's like. But it shows they're thinking about it, right? And I saw all those, so be willing to ask any question. This is your life. Mm-hmm. So you should be qualifying them as much as they're qualifying you. Like when we interview people, we're not like rapid fire like the old Westerns where, I don't think anybody watches old Westerns anymore, but they shoot at the cowboys' feet and they're like dancing. Like, I don't think that's how an interview should be. It should be a conversation where you're informing yourself if you want to spend your life, the most precious thing you have, at this place. Yeah. And they should be asking similar questions to see if they want to spend part of their life with you. So it should be really a conversation, and ask what you need to ask.
Yep.
It's so helpful. We got students, raise your hand if you have a question. I can kind of walk up to you, or one of the students over here will. But while we're doing that, I want to kind of pose that topic back to you, this notion of how you're going to spend your life, which is really a question of how you're going to spend your time, your most valuable resource, as you mentioned. How do you, and what is the magic formula ratio for the contemplation of a decision and the risks associated with a decision to actually making a decision? In other words, how much time on the front end are you willing to allocate to a decision or a risk before actually making the decision on it?
Well, do you want to take it or should I?
This is kind of like the, well, it depends, you know? Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, no, you're good.
You want me to go? So I forget who said it, but it's something along the lines of like a good plan fiercely executed now is better than a perfect plan executed like later in time. So you have to balance, because like again, you know, I call it the engineer brain, where we're overanalyzers, right? So that's the biggest trap you can fall into. I think you have to basically be modifying, like go in a direction and then be willing to kind of modify it as you go. So it's not like all just a straight path. And I don't know if that answers your question, Eric, but I look at it as like, start moving in the direction immediately. So you don't have to wait. Like I don't do regrets. The only regret I ever have is not starting what I wanted to do sooner. Doesn't matter what you want to do, start it today. It doesn't cost you anything. And then as you start moving in that direction, you can modify as you go.
Sure. Not letting the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Yes.
And the done. Okay,
said.
can work with that.
Yeah.
All right, students, any question over here? That we have?
You know, save them all for the session after, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's
Man,
everyone's
maybe it's
waiting
'cause
for
it's
the
a Friday now.
unfiltered. Yeah, it's Friday. Getting ready for the weekend here. Okay, well, let's wrap on this thought then. If you were in their shoes now, not only would you give them the advice of don't wait, be intentional, understand what it means to be all in, what should they be studying? What is the 1 or 2 subjects or skill sets that you're like, wow, we just cannot find that in people? If people have that, we hire them in a heartbeat.
We talking about hiring, or are we talking about
Yeah.
personal growth and?
Let's give one for each.
Okay.
Oh, geez. Oh, but you're putting me on the spot
Yeah.
first?
Do you want me to go first?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
He always
great.
he always has ideas,
I don't know.
and
Like,
then, then I
yeah,
can think, well,
right.
he's...
So,
And Mitchell, kick the spotlights on him. This is
I
the
think
big answer.
I think for me the biggest thing actually in either bucket is self-awareness.
Yeah.
And actually we've started to interview both of us for that, because if you're not self-aware, you're not going to actually get better, right? Like, you know, like if you're self-aware, you're paying attention to like, well, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Like I would figure out like and try to study and learn like what is like are you self-aware, and if not, like how do you become self-aware? And I don't know, that's maybe a bigger question, because there is a spectrum across that, and there's a whole like I think some people call it theory of mind. There's different psychology aspects to it, but that self-awareness tells you then like what do you need to learn, because it really depends on what job you're doing, on the specific skill trait, but that self-awareness will guide you to like always get better, right? Just don't ever stop. Like I don't feel like I'm the best learner. I actually feel like I'm a slow learner, but my philosophy is I'm going to keep learning my whole life, and then eventually I'll know a lot.
Yeah.
So if I live long.
Yeah, absolutely. If you show that you're self-aware, people I think are more, I have a very different hiring philosophy than probably most companies, I'll just say that, but I care less about what someone knows walking through the door than who they are. I think that if someone is self-aware, and you can see that in them, and you can see that they're actually a driven, passionate person about what they're doing, then and they can learn and they have a desire to learn, then I'll take people like that every day, even if they don't know as much as the next person.
So be yourself and keep learning.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for helping us all learn a little bit more today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks. For what?
Whoops.
Oh, I don't think you.